How's it going, everyone? Equinox Phoenix here, and today we're going to talk about The Flash Season 8, Episode 12, titled Death Rises. Now, this episode is, uh, a doozy and a half, right? So, picking up where we left off last week, Deathstorm is here. He seemingly tries to attack Caitlyn, but Caitlyn's not burning up at all, which is weird. Her screams somehow get to Barry, and he like rushes off, right, to try and save her. Now Barry's lightning doesn't work. Uh, this episode was a bit much for me. Um, and so everyone's freaking out, right? Like now we have everyone freaking out now. Um, Cecile shows up and she's like, Barry, what? And she asks Barry what's wrong because he's like, Barry is very much um, like what the fuck. We know why Barry's freaking out over Iris. And then Sue texts him and says, Iris is back, come home. And so he does. Um, now, they try and summon Dion, right? And it doesn't work like it normally does. Which is interesting. Anyway, Kramer uses the little button thing she has to call the Flash. Because Deathstorm's on a rampage. He's been killing. I think he kills like half a dozen people in like a couple hours, which is like freaking out everybody. Um, and so him, Joe, and Kramer are all like talking, and Kramer asks Joe, "How the fuck did you do this?" Right, like because he's the former captain and all that, and his response is, "I had Barry." Like literally, his response is, "I had a friend." Look, pointing at literally his son-in-law, suited up, but still his son-in-law, and saying, "I had a friend." Yeah, you had your son-in-law. Still, anyway, anyway, so Barry informs Kramer that it's Deathstorm, feeds off grief, and so she goes out. Um, because Deathstorm did a th- I think it was Deathstorm did a thing. Hold up. Da, 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 da. And of course, the player is really bad on the CW. He goes off to do something or other. Looks like Star Labs. Yeah, he goes back to Star Labs. Anyway, so Kramer tells everyone, look, if you've got grief, recent grief, don't go out. It's not safe for you. Everyone else, put the city on lockdown. And get everyone indoors because it's not safe. Now Barry returns to Star Labs. They're trying to figure out a way to do this. They come up with a plan to use Cecile. Because Cecile's an empath, and whatnot, and they go through with it, but uh, Deathstorm ends up possessing Cecile, and he's like, you'll never beat me, blah, blah, blah. Villainous monologue a la DeVoe, Thawne, Savitar. We've been through this villainous monologue nonsense so many times because they keep bringing Thawne back, by the way. Um, Godspeed, even. Uh, So it's all good. Right. It's all good. And then he lets Cecile go. More panicky things. Anyway, so Barry is very much freaking out, right? And so he's got that look on his face, right? Joe walks in. Hey, time for them father son heart to hearts again. Let's go. I love these. Anyway, Joe's immediate reaction to seeing Barry with that look on his face is like, ah, so you're wondering what to do too. Because Kramer also has that look on her face, and it's interesting because it's like, ooh, no, what do I do? Help! That's pretty much what's going on. Uh, so Joe's like, dude, I knew a guy, right? Young, inexperienced, didn't know what to do. He ran into walls like Devoe, Cicada, Bloodwork. Clearly, the guy that Joe knew is Barry. When Barry asks, "What do I do?" he's like, "You run into the unknown," and it somehow gets Barry, in a good place. Now Dion does show up eventually, and we find out that Dion being able to see past, present, and future. Renee Wazo, he didn't see what happened to her until after it had happened. And Iris, he can't see her future at all. It's like Iris's time sickness is somehow now affecting the Still Force. It is affecting time itself, which is scary. Now, they do get the idea to use like a piece of the Still Force as like a tracking device, so that Dion can track Iris wherever she goes and whatnot. Which is great. But right after Dion does this, he looks out into like the horizon type thing. He's like, "Wait, something's wrong." And as he's walking away, he like clutches at his like abdomen and starts falling. And as he's falling, he disperses into still force particles or time particles, or whatever you want to call them, which is pretty fucking scary. Um, so that's now after this, Iris starts phasing out of time a little bit later. I'm just gonna skip to this part right now. Iris starts to phase out of time, and Sue manages to get Iris, you know, uh, anchored to the present. By bringing up like, if you think you don't have a future, focus on Barry, focus on Nora, focus on Bart. Use them to anchor yourself to the present, because without you, they have no future. Especially in the case of Nora and Bart, who are her children, and she still has to give birth to them first. For them to exist. So now Deathstorm does show up at the Speed Lab where Caitlin and Frost are. But before he shows up, Caitlin has a heart to heart with her sister. Not Caitlin, sorry. Caitlin and Frost have a heart to heart, and Frost manages to get it through Caitlin's very thick scientific skull that the shit going down is not her fault. Um, she's as much a victim of Deathstorm as everyone else. Now afterwards, you know, while Frost is drawing, because Frost is very artistic apparently. Oh, Deathstorm shows up. He knocks out Frost and kidnaps Caitlyn. Now, Barry runs. He runs as fast as he can after Deathstorm, chasing down. This man is running. He's like, you want to say run, Barry, run. Barry's fucking running. So he can't catch up for whatever reason. Barry's not at his peak of speed, which is great. And he asks, well, it's more. It's not like that he can't catch up. It's more there's not enough. There's not enough land, as it were, for him to push off of and continue running. So he asks Chester, "Can I use lightning and the boots as a platform?" He asks like what would happen if he was to try and use his own lightning, use the boots on his own lightning. Chester's like, it would be like running into a brick wall. And he's like, I'm counting on it. And he uses it to create platforms in the air. Now, right before he manages to catch up to Deathstorm, Deathstorm opens up a portal to a place that looks very familiar to those of us who have watched the previous seasons of The Flash. And whoosh, disappears. And Barry, just falls down a building. He manages to catch himself and not die, but it's just thing. Anyway, now they've lost the thing, but Deathstorm reappears in a park. Oh, sorry, I'm all over the place emotionally, and so it's kind of freaking out my body. Because this episode is just all over the place. If you guys haven't figured it out, Deathstorm reappears in a park right outside Central City, where he kills 4 people, and he lights Caitlyn on fire again. And Barry is still outside, so Chester's like, Barry, they've re-showed up at a park in outside the city. Barry runs, and when he gets there, there are 4 bodies, and Caitlyn's right there. Now, Caitlyn's like, he said I wasn't ready. And when they go back to Star Labs, it looks like Caitlyn is enhanced. She's got the grief of a family of 4. And, oh, it looks like Deathstorm is trying to create himself a bride via Caitlyn. Well, Barry figures out what happened, right? Deathstorm was created from Ronnie Raymond's grief. That grief, if you guys don't understand, is him having to leave his wife right after they get married. Right, because these two very much loved each other, very much. The grief of Ronnie having to sacrifice himself because he didn't want to do it. It was like, I have to, or the world ends, kind of thing. That grief created Deathstorm. It fused with something that created Deathstorm. And the reason it took Deathstorm so long to get to us is because of how far away Deathstorm was created. Realizing singularities and black holes, the reason why I said it looks familiar is because Chester, when his powers went out of control, it opened up a black hole to the exact place in space and time that Deathstorm was created. In that dimensional entity, as it were. And so they're like, oh, we could probably create a cannon type. We can't just make a cannon. They could use the MAC that was used to close Chester's black hole as a way to kind of like destroy Deathstorm, but it needs to be via a person. Frost offers herself up for this because, as she told her mother, her dad created her to protect Katie, and she was literally born for this. I don't like where this is going. I very much don't like where this is going. I have to say this. This looks like we're gonna lose Frost. I don't like this. We all know I don't like needless character death. Damn it. I'm sure there's probably other ways they could do this, hopefully. But it looks like we're gonna lose Frost, and as much as I hate it, I'm not the writers. Now, going to Iris and Barry's apartment, we see Sue Dearborn asleep. And Iris seemingly asleep. Now, Iris wakes up and she's looking because someone's looking into the apartment. They're like, she's like, what's going on? And enter Eddie Thawne. Or is it? The episode ends here with what seems to be Eddie Thawne appearing. Now, we know it's not Eddie. That's not even a spoiler. We know it's not Eddie. It is Deathstorm trying to kill Iris via grief and whatnot. Ow. Ugh. My arm is pale. My arm right here is like pale as fuck, and then like my skin just slowly gets darker. Anyway, that's the episode. It's a good episode. I like it. We see Deathstorm wanting to make Caitlyn his bride via Ronnie's grief and whatnot. It's all great and everything, but it's just like, please stop. When it comes to trying to kill off characters. Anyway, it was a great episode. Next episode, I think next episode is the end of the graphic novel, so it should be where um Deathstorm goes goodbye. Anyway, that's good for this video. If you guys haven't already, hit like, hit subscribe for new. I will see you guys next time, and as always, stay bright.